Hello, everyone, and welcome to Late Night Book Chat. I'm Patricia Meredith.
And I'm Andrew D. Meredith.
Thank you for joining us so late on a Monday night, but we're so excited to be here. Tonight,
we have a very special guest here tonight. She's going to... Oh, there she is! It's Patricia. We're going to be interviewing Patricia because tonight we are going to be revealing the cover of your new book.
Of my new cozy mystery. Yay!
Do tell us. We're trying a different setup for the mic today, so let us know if you can hear us. We're hearing us well. If anything is changing and you can't hear us, tell us that too, and we'll fix that. So, yes. I understand, Patricia. Well, no, we'll get to that. If you're here, you're in the audience. If you're in the audience, you can ask questions. If you want to ask questions, please ask them with an asterisk.
Kind of like the comic.
Which is asterisk.
Yes.
Asterisk. Whatever.
The little star shape on your keyboard.
Yeah, it's okay.
If you put that in front of it, then we can find the questions easier at the end of the show. So, yes. Yay. I see you all saying hi. Hello. Thank you for coming on.
So, Patricia.
Yes.
I understand that you wrote a book.
I did. Are we getting to that first, or are we going to do?
I think so.
Okay, great.
Well, I just want to hear about this book a little bit. You wrote a book.
Okay. So tonight we will be talking about my newest cozy mystery. It is technically a historical cozy mystery because it is set in the 1990s.
I remember the 90s.
I remember the
Where were
90s.
you?
I know. Where was I in the 90s? I was in a lot of places, actually. We moved a lot that year. That decade. Yes. But I recently discovered that the 1990s are considered historical now. So I am historical now. Awesome. Love it.
Yes.
And so up until this point, I have focused on historical mysteries. And this is actually something I wrote the first draft of about 4 years ago. And then I put it on the back burner because I thought I want to focus on historical mysteries. And so I moved into the 1901 and the 1872, and then discovered that the 1990s were historical. And so I'm back to Goose and Penny, and I'm so glad to be back with these characters because they are so much fun. So, yeah.
Before we hear any more about this book, we're going to leave you on a cliffhanger right there. I have some questions to ask you from our super special
pot
stoneware.
of questions. Yes.
All right.
Very fancy.
Historical stoneware from before the 1980s.
That's right. So what's your random question for me?
Patricia Meredith. What is a book or series that has a special meaning for you?
So my favorite book of all time is To Say Nothing of the Dog, which I talk about all the time. But I would say a series that has a special meaning to me, which is a little bit different than your favorite book, would be the Winnie the Pooh series by A.A. Milne, of course. The original Winnie the Pooh stories. We recently re-listened to them on audio with the kids, and it is so witty and so funny. The original literature is just so wonderful, and then plus all the illustrations and everything. And so Pooh Bear has always held a special place in my heart, especially Kanga. She was always my favorite, and Rabbit was always my favorite because he always had a list and he stuck to it, and he was organized and he got things done, and that is so me. So,
by the way, I'm Frog and she's Toad.
You can't tell.
You love Pooh so much that when we went to Wales.
That when we went to Wales, I was able to pick up I think it's actually a second edition.
Well, it's
Is it a first edition? Of the second book. That's what it was.
It just wasn't in mint condition.
It was a first edition of the second book. So House at Pooh Corner, which is the second one that came out. And then I have all the poems, and I grew up memorizing the poetry and just all the stories, and I love Pooh and Piglet, and they're such an original motley crew, right? That I feel like there's so often. I've read a couple books. There's like one that's I think it's the Tao of Piglet, or Tao of Pooh.
Tao of Pooh and the Tao
yes,
of Piglet.
and the Tao of Piglet, and it kind of goes into like how each one of them represents a different. Almost like the Enneagram, right? Or like, which house are you, right?
Yeah,
but which character in Winnie the Pooh are you? Would love to hear that answer in the comments. Which Pooh character do you most identify with?
By the way, I pulled it again.
Oh, really? Okay. That's the
question I'm not supposed to
that
ask.
keeps
It's
coming
for
up.
somebody else in a few weeks.
Yes.
Let's start with it again.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my word, it's going to the bottom.
Put it at the bottom,
All right.
and then we won't find it for
yeah, exactly.
that person.
No, we'll make sure we get it.
Okay.
All right. What is your favorite mythical creature?
The Phoenix.
Okay.
Love the Phoenix. So Fox is one of my favorite phoenixes ever written in the Harry Potter series. I love the idea of rebirth, of they get really, really old and then they crumble into ash, but then they are reborn. And I love that. And that image of fire and wings all together. I've always loved that.
Did you get to the Phoenix in Hogwarts Legacy yet?
I have not.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
I won't say anymore. All right.
By the way, I play as Ravenclaw, of course.
Yes, I'm a Ravenclaw.
Yes. Actually, we're both Ravenclaws.
How do you feel about movie tie-in covers?
Covers. Oh, like the cover. Okay. So I really don't like them. But one of my favorite books that we have on our shelf is The Return of the King, signed by the King. And if you want to know that story, you have to go watch the cover reveal with Andrew because he answered
2 weeks
that
ago.
2 weeks ago. He can tell you that story. But I'm usually not a fan of movie tie-in covers because, frankly, the book is always better. Mm-hmm. So, with a few choice exceptions.
There's very few times when you actually have a frame that works well.
Yes.
But when we were playing Battlestar Galactica, the board game,
yes.
I was just remembering how well that game was so laid out. Using frame by frame, finding good frames that didn't feel forced.
So some of them gave things away.
That's true.
So that's what we realized as we were playing with some friends of ours who had not seen the show yet. And we were like, oh, you can't look at that card. We'll just put that card over here. So anyway.
So I have to caveat this first one
by
asking, what are you reading right now?
I'm reading 7 different books at once. So which one?
Fiction book are you reading right now? It has to be a fiction.
Guards by Terry Pratchett.
Okay. If you were stuck in a broken elevator with the villain of your current reading, how screwed would you be?
Depends on who you consider the villain to be in Guards. If I was stuck with Lord Vetinari, I think is the main, like he's the patriarch of the city. He's usually painted as the villain. And so far, I'm not all the way through the book. So it's him. And then there's another character that is probably the villain. But if I was stuck with Lord Vetinari, I think he and I would get along really well because he is a lot like Rabbit. And he's very organized and he's just trying to do what's best for the community. And he's trying to get, I just finished Going Postal. And in that one, he's getting the post office up again. And of course, he hires a crook to do it and doesn't expect a lot out of him. But hey, he gets the job done. So
I think I saw you just added Thud to your reading list.
Yes, because Guards is the first one.
Yeah.
Thud is actually the very first Terry Pratchett I ever read. But now I'm going back and trying to read the Watch. The Night Watch. That group of books because I really love Carrot and all of they're fantastic books. So
all right, last one.
One more. Okay.
What is the longest you've gone without reading?
Oh my goodness.
When was the desert of your soul of not reading?
I can't think of a time that I've never gone without reading.
From like maybe ages 0 to
maybe
5?
not reading for fun. Like I didn't read for fun in college. Right. But I read a lot because I'm a writing major. So I was reading a lot. And you read that was more like on our honeymoon and stuff.
No, I read Bulgaria.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yes.
You read
Bulgaria aloud. And I was reading Woodhouse.
Exactly.
So see, even amidst college having to read a bunch of books that I absolutely despised, I still found time to read. So never. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. No desert. I guess the desert of my soul was from ages 0 to 6 before I could read.
Yeah.
So.
And even then it was still overseas.
And even then, my mom read to me. Like I remember her reading aloud to us.
Had you unalphabeted, like
so probably, yeah.
Or you did.
I was not one of those kids who could read, Lord of the Rings by age 6, but I loved listening to books read aloud, which is probably why I still love audiobooks. Like that's my go-to. That's how I listen to books is audiobooks. So there you go. A little bit about me.
Yeah. So you're a reader.
Yes.
And you're an artist.
I am now. I never considered myself an artist before, but I actually did the cover art for this book, and I'm really, really excited about how it turned out. And first, I have to caveat it with, if we're about to show the book promo, I want to caveat it with a special shout out to Sarah Pounder, who's one of my beta readers. I sent her the original cover that I had designed for this, and it was a little bit more Thursday Murder Club, very kind of dark, and it was like silhouettes, and I really loved it. It was like bright orange and then a dark silhouette.
The classic.
It was very classic.
Very classic.
Yeah. And I liked it, Agatha Christie. It worked for that kind of book. But then she came back to me and she was like, so I've been thinking about your cover. And I just wanted to say that what I pictured was more of a pastoral, like hills and maybe some birds on there, because that's mostly what it's about, is the birds. And I said, you know what, Sarah, that was my original thought, but I thought it would be too hard and that I couldn't figure out to do it myself, and I couldn't afford an artist. And so it's either I have to learn it myself or whatever. And so, but I kept coming back to the idea of, because I love All Creatures Great and Small, which is what his book and cover is based off of. And so I kept picturing that opening montage from All Creatures for my cover. And so with Sarah pushing me, I took a week and I taught myself how to do this. And by the end, I had the cover that I have now, that I absolutely love.
So who is ready for the cover reveal of
Slings
and Sparrows? Because it's happening.
Ready?
Now.
Now I have to find it. Hold on.
After we find it.
After we find it. Okay.
We're going to push go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
3, 2, 1.
Yay!
All right, what do you think? Did I capture that all creature vibe that I was going for? Hopefully I did. Let me know what you guys think of it. I'm really excited about this cover. I looked at it
right over there, actually.
I actually do. So yeah, I was able to get the arc in time for tonight. So here you go, in all of its glory. It's kind of hard to see with the lights. There we go, with the lighting, but there it is. Goose and Penny in paperback. So it is available for pre-order now, and we'll talk about that at the end. The pre-order deal. Okay.
Though there is a question we have to answer right now.
Okay.
Alethea asks, are you telling me that a goose and a chicken solve the mystery?
No, it is people. And we'll get into that more with, I made a making of video that goes into each of the characters. And I addressed that exact question because I knew it was going to come up. And that's actually something when I was making the book promo, I was thinking, okay, I'm just going to, have them waddle across. And then I realized that it made it look like it was a children's book with a goose and a chicken solving a mystery. But it is not. It is people. It's just each of the women are very similar to their birds. Mm-hmm. So, yes.
What's the pitch?
So it's Murder, She Wrote meets Golden Girls with a bit of Donna Andrews and Cat Who books thrown in. If you're a fan of Jessica Ellicott and the Beryl and Edwina mysteries, I recently reminded myself that, that was a series that I loved. And that's actually one of the things that I was reading when I started writing this was I thought, I would love a series with two gals who are like in their 60s who have lived some life and they're still, they're at the height of their experiences and then they are forced into a mystery. It's just so fun to write characters with so much background behind them. With 60 years of experience behind them, they have seen so much and the world has changed so much. And so it was really fun placing them in the 90s. Because we look back on the 90s and we're like, well, nothing's changed since the 90s. And no, a lot was different and a lot was changing in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me a lot of writing my 1890s and my 1900s books, the burgeoning technology. And so I specifically I had to narrow it down to an exact month in the 90s. So it is, I believe it's June, might be July of 1997 is when this takes place, because a month previous Ask Jeeves had been released and I needed that to happen for the book. I also needed The Prestige to be published, which had been published in England the year before, but not in America until 1997. It wasn't available. And then I needed Julie Andrews is also mentioned. And I loved the reference to her in it. It was pertinent. It had to do with birds. And so I needed Julie Andrews with her surgery that she had. Well, it happened in, I think it's May of 97 that she had her surgery that botched her voice. And so that was all pertinent to the mystery. So I had to keep moving my date. I was like, okay, The Prestige was in 96, so I can do it in 96. And then I had to keep moving it forward a little bit. And so we landed in 1997. So a very fun year. I know, I was thinking about that. 97. I think we were living in Ohio. So Sydney, Ohio. I would have been, how old? I was born in 86. So I was, I can't do math. Do math for me. So I was 11. So yeah, definitely living in Ohio. So I was, I remember taking typing classes around that time, and that was a new thing. In fact, I was recently talking to my mom about typing classes for her. It's just, it was a fun time of year. It was fun looking up like what movies came out at that time of year, or in the 90s at that time. And it's all those classic high Disney movies that we remember, Beauty and the Beast and Lion King and Ariel, and all of those are in the the beginning of the 90s. And so those are such formative times. Oh, the other thing that comes up in the book is like Wishbone is on at that point. Lamb Chop is like on reruns. And so there's different things. The Poirot show, David Suchet starring as Poirot, who is definitely the best Poirot ever, had done a couple seasons by then. By 97, it had taken a break that year. And so I have them watching reruns of Poirot. So, not that I'm geeking out about the 97s, but I am. So
I wasn't watching anything that summer because I was in Kenya.
You were in Kenya? Oh, that's right.
Because you were dormitory.
Because you were 15.
15. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So because there is an age difference. So I know. So, but yes, Wishbone is the best. So one of the things that I discovered during all my research of Wishbone is it was only 2 seasons. 2 seasons. And I remember it like every episode. It's like they must have just rerun it over and over again.
Oh yeah.
And then I remember the books.
Well, there's not that much literature, right?
yeah, exactly. They can only do so much. I keep waiting for that one to get a reboot, because that would be a fantastic one to do a reboot of, because there's so many wonderful pieces of literature that need to be reintroduced to our children and shown how they're pertinent to our world today. Right?
Well, because then they could do Wishbone does Good Man is Hard to Find and Bartleby the Scrivener. And,
there's so many they missed, right? Absolutely. Yes, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, we got off on Wishbone. Yes. But yeah. So I had a lot of fun researching, because of course it took me back to research, right? Even though it's a cozy mystery. Once again, I found myself doing research and getting lost in the pond of weather and moon cycles and all sorts of things. So it was more actors and actresses, like finding out how old everybody was then.
And location.
And location, right? Exactly. Yeah.
It shows a very interesting place.
Oh, yes. So this book is set in Paca Springs, which is a made-up town, but it is greatly inspired by Hancock, Maryland, which again will come up in the making of video. But Hancock, Maryland is located on the waistline of Maryland, is what it's called. And it's that thin strip that's about 1.5 miles across. That is Pennsylvania, Maryland, and West Virginia all butting up right against each other. And I always thought that would be a great place to put a mystery. And so that's where I ended up. That's where I based this town off of. But then I made it up so that way I could have more fun with. Fill my characters with my populace that I want, and then I can kill them off slowly one by one. So
that are not named, that are not real. So
right.
Says, well, that doesn't exist in Hancock.
Exactly.
No, it doesn't. It's Paca Springs.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's Paca Springs because William Paca is a signatory of the Declaration of Independence, just like Hancock. But Goose has a whole thing where she explains. Goose has a whole thing where she explains that she would have never known who Paco was, except that, and I'm probably mispronouncing it. He's probably Italian or something. I don't know, but American, because he signed the Declaration of Independence. So there you go. So
he wasn't born in America, but he died in America.
That's right. So, but very much influenced by Pennsylvania and my Pennsylvania heritage. My dad's side is all from Pennsylvania. They're all Italian Pennsylvanians. And so very inspired by that, the slate walls that are all over Pennsylvania. And then I talked to my sister-in-law, who her whole family is from Pittsburgh. And so talking about like the accent and picking up little words, little things to put in there. And then again, my friend Sarah Pounder was helping me come up with some fun isms, some Pennsylvania isms. So I had a lot of fun with that as well. So yeah.
So you made the cover.
I did make the cover.
How did you make?
Well, shall we watch the making of video, and then I can answer some questions after that?
Mr. Rogers watches
making of
video,
yes.
And that's what I'm here for.
Yes. So this will be a making of the cover. I'll explain a little bit more about the story, and then I'll also go through each of the main characters. So Goose is the narrator, and I'll explain who she is. She is not a goose. In fact, there's even a chapter called "In Which We Discover I Am Not a Goose." But it's all first person from Goose's perspective, and she is so much fun to write. So, but I want to introduce you to everybody in the Old Bird Society, which is my group of basically my Thursday murder club that gets together and solves mysteries. So yeah, we ready?
We're ready.
Hey y'all, thank you for joining me for this making of the cover, a little behind the scenes. So I'm going to reveal each of the layers. Basically, this is how I made them, is from bottom to top. So I started with just the road and the sky, and then actually the skyline in the back there is based off of an actual picture from Hancock, Maryland, which is the city that Paca Springs in the book is based off of. And so same with that house. The house is actually based off of a house in Hancock, Maryland. So I took a lot of inspiration from that area. It's right on the waistline of Maryland, which is that area that's about 1.5 miles between Pennsylvania, Maryland, and West Virginia. And I always thought that would be a great place to put a murder mystery. And that's where Slings and Sparrows ended up landing. So, of course, I had to include some slate walls. Those are very common in Pennsylvania. Definitely my main characters think of themselves as Pennsylvanians. So I took a lot of inspiration from that. And here comes who you might think are the main characters, Goose and Penny, but they are in fact humans. We'll meet them here in a minute. These are just references to their respective birds. So we have a goose who is either Tommy or Tuppence. Those are the two geese that Goose has, and if you get that reference, extra gold stars for you. And then here is Miss Henny, who is the comfort chicken of Penny, and she is based off of a silver-laced cochin, which is a kind of chicken that you should definitely look up. They are so sweet and so cute, and we used to have one on the farm named Miss Fancy Pants, and she was our favorite chicken. Just absolutely wonderful. So I put a lot of effort into making sure that she looked just like our silver-laced cochin. So here you go. There is the full wrap for the print version of Slings and Sparrows. So now let's go meet each of the characters. First up, of course, we have Miss Goose. She is known as Goose to her friends, mostly because Penny grew up calling her that. She's kind of a mother goose. She's the mother figure to Penny. And she has two geese named Tommy and Tuppence. And she is not at all like her geese. Oh no, she's not loud and brash and in your face at all. And then we have Penny. And Penny suffers from anxiety, and so early on in her life, she realized that she needed a comfort animal, and she ended up with a comfort chicken, which is a real thing. And so she always names the comfort chicken Henny, and together they are Henny Penny, waiting for the next bit of sky that is falling. Next we have Aunt Connie, and everyone knows her as Aunt Connie, even though she is technically the aunt of Goose and Penny, and she owns the Quaint Quail, and which is a literary tea shop in Paca Springs, and she is full of energy even though she is in her 80s. She's one of my favorite characters. Next up is Beatrice, and she has a lot of similarities to me. You might notice that she is wearing the same costume as I am wearing right now, and she is a huge fan of costume design. And she is very similar to her peacocks. She's a little bit showy, a little bit flirtatious, and she is so much fun. Next up is Sable, and Sable may or may not have started the goth movement back in the 80s as a professor who always dressed in black, having fallen in love with the gothic literature that she was reading in college, which is how she met Beatrice and Goose. So she comes with a raven who is named Hugin, and he is often to be found quoting Edgar Allan Poe poems. And here comes Alice. Alice is a psychiatrist and has pet guinea fowl, which was another kind of bird that we had on the farm when we were living there. And they are just a little bit crazy, kind of like Alice. Next is Ruth, and Ruth is a lot of fun to play around with because she is a retired Army nurse, which links into my background as an Army brat. I have an aunt who is a retired Army nurse, and Ruth is funny because she speaks with a slight British accent that she may or may not have picked up somewhere, and she comes with an army of ducks. The last and latest member of our motley crew is Maya, and she has brought along with her her pet cockatiel, who is a famous performer and whistles around the country. Unfortunately, you will find that the very first chapter opens with Casper being found murdered. So he is the murder victim for our story, and you'll have to follow along in Slings and Sparrows to find out who done it. And there's lots of quirky, fun characters, and everybody is based on birds and the wild variety of character that a bird can have. Slings and Sparrows is available for pre-order starting tonight on our website only. You can pre-order the print version. It'll be a signed copy and it's going to come with some fun things. And if you pre-order in the next 2 weeks before the release of the ebook and audiobook on May 28th, you will receive the ebook and audiobook for free with a purchase of the signed print edition. So be sure to run out to our website after our episode tonight and place your pre-order so that you can make sure you get all those freebies and fun things along with it. All right.
There we go.
What do you think? I love my Brady Bunch. Turned out so good. So I'm very proud of this, you guys. And so as you can see, I'm dressed as Beatrice tonight. So I've even got my peacock earrings. Let's see if I can. These are made from actual peacock feathers. There you go. You can see this. Yeah, there you go. So one of the things when we moved to the farm, I remember asking, like, does it hurt the peacocks to take their feathers? And Linda looked at me like, so they molt every summer. No, it doesn't hurt them. But I didn't know anything when we moved to the farm. No. And then we ended up living there for 4 years.
With peacocks.
With peacocks.
Guinea fowl.
Mm-hmm. Ducks.
Chickens.
Turtle doves.
Turtle doves.
Yep.
And then the locals, sparrows. Some sparrows.
Geese on and off. It was, yeah. And quail. Of course, quail all over the place.
And one pheasant. One pheasant.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's where all the birds came from. And that's why I say I wrote this. The first edition I wrote 4 years ago, which is while we were living on the farm up in Spokane, Washington, in Spangle, just south of Spokane. And we were living with Linda and Mike Chase, to whom the book is dedicated, because they shared their farm life with us and taught us about homesteading. And it was amazing for 4 years. It was right during COVID and all of that. It was the best place to be during the pandemic. Absolutely. And so during that, I got to know all the birds, and I went into it thinking I was one of those people who thought birds didn't have any personality. I was like, no, I don't like birds. They've got those beady little eyes and they just study you. And no, I'm very much a dog person. And then we moved to the farm. and I got to know all the birds, and they had so much personality. I was inspired to write a murder mystery.
Yeah.
So with them involved.
And
so
then the several days coaching was based on Mrs. Fancy Pants,
and which I mentioned in the video. Yes, yeah. So so good job, Alethea, knowing all of the birds. That's awesome. I'm glad they look like what they're supposed to. I had a lot of fun making the guinea fowl. She was hard because of the polka dots all over, right? So I kept looking at the pictures. All of them are based off of pictures from our farm. Ruth holding the duck. I have a picture of me actually holding a duck like that. He's like draped over my arm. And so if you follow me on Instagram, I'll be posting all of those pictures and stuff over the next several weeks, months, as we count down to release. So yeah.
Is it being released?
It is being released.
When
Well,
is it being
so I
released?
mentioned that in the video. So he couldn't hear the video while we were watching it. So, yes. So it's yes. So Slings and Sparrows is available May 28th in ebook and audiobook. So if you pre-order the print edition, the print signed copy direct from us, you will get the ebook and audiobook for free if you order before that date. And then the print will officially release on June 11th, which is 2 weeks later. And that gives me time to, make all your packages really pretty and get them all sent out. Make sure that the print run looks really nice and things like that. So yes. But yeah, it's been a labor of love, and it's the first in a series. And so I'm so excited to just keep going with this one. It'll be a nice, cozy, break in between.
Want to make adjustments to the mic?
Okay.
And we'll see if that improves for both of us.
Oh, it says sound is much better. Oh, I gotcha. There you go. Yes. So, while he's doing that, I was going to jump in real quick and answer this question first. And then we can do more questions later.
We'll see if that fixes it.
But this question, will there be recipes? Yes, Renee, there will definitely be recipes. So in the back of the book, because that's been my thing lately with the cozies, is instead of doing, here's the truth behind the history, I include recipes. So in my Christmas book, I have Christmas recipes. And in this one, like I said, Aunt Connie runs the Quaint Quail, which is the literary tea shop in town. So I have had so much fun coming up with names for food for her shop. The puns have risen, yes. And so in the back of this book, there will be a recipe for Much Ado About Muffins and Brothers Carrot Matzov, which is really fun. And I'm always looking for more ideas. So DM me on Instagram or leave me a comment here if you have ideas for any sort of literary pun with food.
Short and sweet and can fit on a recipe card.
Exactly. Yes. And then I will come up with a recipe to go with it. But yes, there you go. So excellent. Oh, good. I'm glad that the sound is going better there. So, and yes, exactly. No peacocks were harmed in the making of this jewelry. Exactly. So, which Beatrice is a costume designer, and she also makes jewelry and sells things at farmers markets and stuff like that. Originally, I had her selling on Etsy, but Etsy was not around in '97, so I had to remove that. So,
that's true.
So,
what do you think about reading a little bit of your book?
I think I can. I was just going to check the time. I realized that I didn't leave this down. Yep, we're doing fine on time. So, okay. All right. Yeah. So I am going to read to you guys the first chapter, since I already gave away who the body is, so who the victim is. But I thought that would be a good place to start. So, but real quick, just in the front, you will have a list, for those of you who love a list of dramatis personae. This is the list of the Old Bird Society in order of membership. So I give all of their names, what they do, or whether they're retired or not. Because like I said, they're all, I think Alice is the youngest in her late 50s. And then Aunt Connie is the oldest in her mid 80s. But everybody else is in their 60s. So half of them are retired, half of them are still working. And they all have interesting pasts, but they also all have a bird associated with them, which if you missed our conversation, our very first conversation, our very first live stream here, I was sharing how a lot of that came from the opening to 101 Dalmatians, where each of the people who walk by look like their dogs. And that's what started happening to me at the farm, was I was watching the peacocks and how they interacted. And it was like, oh my gosh, they're just a bunch of old ladies. It's so funny. So Of course, the peacocks are the males, so take that as you will. But all right, so we learn a lot about birds in this book. Almost all the stories in here that involve an animal are based off of true things that happened with the birds on the farm. Everything but the main event, which I'll read about today, though one of my early readers told me that she actually had an experience that was similar. So who knows? Truth is stranger than fiction. So, all right, here we go. So chapter 1 of Slings and Sparrows, a Goose and Penny mystery, in which Cock Robin comes to an untimely demise. The day Cock Robin was murdered started like any other day, with the peacock crowing up the morning sun. Yes, the peacock. You know, I said, royalty used to consider peacock a delicacy. Perhaps it's about time we brought the custom back. Don't say such things, my sister Penny cried, covering the ears of her comfort chicken, Henny, as though she might take offense. So like I said, it was like any other day. I didn't notice anything was wrong until it was too quiet during breakfast. I was sitting there drinking my orange juice and eating my bagel, reading the Paca Springs Gazette, when I realized I could hear my own thoughts. They weren't being drowned out by the latest rendition of Edelweiss, being whistled by, no, not by a canary, good guess, a cockatiel. Our latest renter, Maya, had trained her cockatiel from a young age to sing, and he was good. And boy, didn't he know it. Every time I saw him, the few brief times Maya let me peek at his majesty before covering him up for his beauty sleep, he was usually standing there, his white feathered chest and red cheeks puffed up with his own perfection, his yellow feathered mohawk sticking straight into the sky, his beady eyes glinting with his own excellence. He was a regular Cock Robin, though Maya insisted he should be referred to by his professional stage name, Casper the Whistling Cockatiel. She said he was named after Caspar Reardon, a famous harpist, but I think most people's thoughts, like mine, went directly to the cartoon Friendly Ghost, which he'd just become, apparently, as Maya came running in, her dyed brown hair with ombre bronze highlights, a strangled mess, yelling, "Someone's killed Caspar!" Maya had what we Victorian literature professors might describe as a Rubenesque figure, meaning even at 60, she had curves in all the right places. This might have made some people dislike her from the start. She was really quite sweet, though you wouldn't have known it to look at her now. Her tan cheeks were flushed with anger. I slowly set down the paper, folding it in half to hide the story I'd been reading, a rather disturbing report about some famous boxer named Mike Tyson who had just been banned for biting someone's ear off. Nevertheless, whatever Maya was on about sounded a lot more interesting. Killed? That's a bit of a jump. I'm sure he just died in his sleep, I said. Why would you say that? You must have killed him. Me? Yes, I know you never liked him. Now, Maya, Penny said softly, her grip on Henny tightening enough to make her give a small cluck. I'm certain no one has killed Caspar, least of all Goose. She'd never hurt a flea. I nodded in affirmation. I would never kill a bird, not even for Thanksgiving. I took a sip of orange juice. And I'm still confused why you're convinced someone killed him. What makes you think he didn't die of natural causes? He has an arrow through his breast. What? I jumped up and pushed past Maya to the sunroom, where Caspar had his own private birdhouse along the south wall. I nearly bit my lip in shock when I saw she was right. Someone had pierced Caspar with something long and sharp right through his chest. I looked about for something the weapon might have come from, some bit of a tomato cage or a loose part of his own bird cage. But nothing around him was missing, a thin, sharp fragment that could pierce a cockatiel through. He lay in the bottom of his cage, his little feet curled as though still clinging to his perch, his beak pointing straight up at the sky. It was honestly a rather terrible sight. My sister stood on the other side of me, paler than usual, and covering Henny's eyes. I came in close and opened the door to his cage slowly. Please, let me, Maya said, pushing me aside. She reached through the opening and gently removed the body. My poor, sweet Caspar, Maya cried, her eyes welling up with tears. Who would do such a thing? Why would someone do such a thing? She asked accusatorily, as though one of us had done this senseless act. She turned, carried Casper to a chair, and sat down, cradling his broken body in her palm. My sister and I watched reverently as Maya pulled the sharp fragments smoothly out of his body and held it. It was a hat pin, about 6 inches long. At that length, it would normally be used for decorating a hat, unlike the 10-inch ones, which were used for holding a hat to the wearer's head. Only someone of our generation would realize the difference, or someone fascinated by a bygone era when hat pins were used regularly. I looked from the pin to Maya and back again. I knew it, she murmured. Beatrice. I hadn't wanted to say it myself, but I only knew one person who used pins like that. Beatrice used them to pin her decorative peacock feathers to the hats she sold at craft fairs and farmers markets. She also made earrings, necklaces, brooches, pens, hair barrettes, and more from the long, luxurious feathers her birds molted every summer. Beatrice would never hurt a bird, I said defensively. None of the OBS ladies would. The fact was, we were all too fond of birds and knew what it would be like if someone hurt ours. So we'd never think of hurting someone else's. It was our fondness for our feathered friends that had caused my sister and I to turn our land on the PA side of Maryland's narrow waste into the OBS in the first place. It started with Penny and me, Goose. Penny had called me Goose since we were children. I think because my favorite book to read to her was a collection of Mother Goose rhymes. Plus, I tended to mother her a bit. It wasn't my fault. I couldn't help myself. Our mother died when we were 3 and 5 years old, so someone had to step into the role. Of course, it was the older sister. Penny always needed help. She often struggled with feeling anxious, even these days, and we were in our 60s now. Although it became popular in the 50s for doctors to prescribe drugs, when we were growing up in the 40s, it was more common to hear something akin to today's "suck it up, buttercup." I don't know why Dad came home with a hen one day, but Penny was 14, and she'd had what I like to call a comfort chicken ever since. She always named them Henny, so together they were Henny Penny, like the Chicken Little character, forever on the lookout for the next piece of sky that might fall. This most recent version of Henny loved being cuddled and carried under one arm. No purse or carrier for this chicken. She wanted to be nestled right up close to Penny. Henny was a silver-laced cochin, a relatively new breed that had first appeared in the 60s and was still holding strong 30 years later. I wasn't surprised, seeing as she was the fluffiest, cutest chicken out there. She was quiet, too, not making a sound except to practically purr when she was happy with the attention she was getting. I preferred geese. Loud, obnoxious, and in-your-face though they were, at least you knew what you were getting into when it came to them. I had 2 Emden geese named Tommy and Tuppence, who waddled about, gabbling all day long, sharing stories and thrilling tales of daring do, just like their namesakes. I absolutely adored the series of books by Agatha Christie, featuring the original comedic detecting duo and their insanely witty banter. Now, seeing our trend toward poultry, my Aunt Connie had decided it would be a good idea to send our way anyone who drank a pot of tea at her cafe who was about our age and owned a bird or two. Blech. After my friend Beatrice with her peacocks came Sable with her raven, Alice with her guinea fowl, and Ruth with her ducks, ranging in age from Alice in her late 50s to Ruth in her late 60s. Each gal rented a bit of land and a home somewhere on our 67 acres, and they each came with a bird. So what else could we call ourselves but a bird sanctuary? Of course, we couldn't call it BS, so we called ourselves the OBS, for Old Bird Society. Sure, one might argue for middle-aged birds or birds of a certain age, but honestly, they just didn't have the same ring to them. The point was, we didn't mind laughing at ourselves once in a while. I'm killing him with laughter. The point was, we didn't mind laughing at ourselves once in a while, and truth be told, we were a bunch of old birds with our birds. So, there you go. Maya was our newest addition with Casper. While they were building her home, she was renting a room with us. Naturally, Casper moved in too. You'd think I'd have built up a tolerance for bird sounds, from Tommy and Tuppence's constant gabbling to the peacocks, yelping like car alarms whenever someone approached. I honestly hadn't realized a professional whistling bird could get on my nerves so quickly. 3 weeks in, and I was ready to kill the bird myself. But I didn't. I wasn't sure who did, but I intended to find out. It must have been an accident, Penny murmured softly, behind me. running an agitated hand over Henny's back feathers. Maya glared at the pair of them. You're saying one of Beatrice's hat pins accidentally impaled him? Well, when you put it that way, Penny said so quietly, only I heard her. No more accusations or assumptions, I declared, taking control. There's nothing to be done. Casper is dead. It's sad, but true. Maya's face went bright red as she rose from her chair. Someone will pay for this, she growled. With a flutter, she left the room, the tiny broken body cradled in her hands. There you go. Hopefully you could hear that. Sorry.
Chink in my armor.
I know. There you go. So, Slings and Sparrows. That's the opening. So now you know who died, and you got to figure out who done it.
Yeah.
So,
it's such a good book.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And she read it just like that because she's also the narrator for this book.
I am.
So if you want the audiobook, you get all of that for.
Yes. I had so much fun doing all the voices.
Yeah.
So, because you've got quite a variety of voices. Alice has a very low, sultry voice, very low and slow. And then
Sable's my favorite to hear you read.
Yeah, Sable. Oh yeah, Sable. Sable ended up coming out very. She's fun. She's fun to do. So yeah, you just have to listen and find out. So yeah.
I can't think of the actress's name who's in Hellboy. That's who you reminded me of when you were Sable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can't think of her name.
I can see her face.
Yeah. So, all right. Shall we do questions?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Go ahead.
All right. Dean and Sue ask. Okay. There we go. Dean and Sue ask. Are the characters in Slings and Sparrows based on real people you know? No, of course not, right?
No, there's no similarity to real people, living or dead, in any way, shape, or form.
That's her tell. If you're ever playing poker with her.
My tell, yes. Yeah. Rudolph would have a field day with me. If you don't get that reference, pick up my Christmas book where Rudolph likes to play gambling games with the other reindeer. So yes. I'll often my characters start with a person. To be honest, all of these characters started with their birds. I started with, a peacock. Okay, how would a peacock act if they were a real person? And so I made Beatrice a costumer. So she's very into what she's wearing, and she's a method costumer. So she's going to change book by book depending on what show she is currently costuming. And so I won't give away what it is in this one. Well, no, I already said it in the other movie. So she's currently costuming Pocket Springs local community theater doing Wizard of Oz, but they're doing it in a steampunk style. And I had to look that up to see if it was around in the 90s. It was kind of around, like it was starting to be a thing. It was not really a thing by the 90s. It was invented
in the 80s, but the comic steampunk wasn't until 95.
Right.
Steam Girl, which
so
people will also often say is the first steampunk, was not. She wasn't until after 2000.
Right. So let's just say Beatrice came up with it in Pennsylvania, and that's why we have steampunk the way it is today. Right. So yes. Yeah.
Bellwether.
Yep. There you go. So in fact, I used the term bellwether a couple times with like Sable's the bellwether for the goth movement and things like that. So.
Because you need to read Bellwether by
Connie Willis, who also wrote Say Nothing of the Dog, who's one of my favorite authors. So there you go. But yeah, so yes, they always start being inspired by somebody or by a bird, but then they took on personalities of their own. Once I let them in, once Alice went loose, she was more than a guinea fowl, but she's very guinea fowl-ish.
Yeah,
she's fun.
We had some insane guinea fowl on that farm.
Yes,
one of them his name was Crazy, and he, except when the sun was down, never stopped ratcheting. Yes.
And it makes this ratcheting sound like I can't even do it. It's like
a worse than
squeaky gate hinge. Yes, yeah. And they would always nest on the other side of the road for some reason, like in the reeds along the river there, the creek. And so it was, it became one of our jokes was, why did the guinea fowl cross the road? And we come up with answers all the time. So that'll come up in the book at some point. So there you go. All
right. Britton asks, would you say Edgar Allan Poe is the father of the detective story rather than Conan Doyle? Please. So
yeah,
we have time still. So yeah, you got time. So go to town.
Okay. So technically the father of detective of the father of the detective story is Edgar Allan Poe, because he invented Dupin before everybody else. However, there are definitely other people who came before him. He is just the most recognizable. He's the one who became famous for it. But he was many, many, many years before Conan Doyle. And then after Edgar Allan Poe is the mother of detective fiction, which is generally recognized to be Anna Catherine Green, who is my other passion project, which is what Adita Dreadful Note is all about, is her writing her first mystery and becoming the mother of detective fiction. So she's like Edgar Allan Poe. She is not the first woman writer of detective stories, but she's the first one to be a blockbuster overnight. She is the first to invent Anna Catherine Green. Yes, to publish. She's the first to publish under her own name as a female, right? An unmarried female. And she kept her name even after she got married. She never published under Mrs. Rolfs. She was always Anna Catherine Green. And then she's the first to write an American serialized detective. Before her, there was an Australian serialized detective, and there was a French serialized detective. Vidocq is based off of Lecoq, right? Isn't it that way? Or no, Vidocq is the real guy. One of them is, I think it's Gaboriau's Lecoq is based off of Vidocq, who's a real criminal turned investigator who came even before Edgar Allan Poe's time, and he was inspired with his invention of Dupin by Vidocq. And so you can actually look up Vidocq. It's Vidocq. And he is
C-O-Q.
O-C-Q. OCQ. It's French, so throw some letters in there. And
I throw umlauts on everything.
That's right. Yes. So, he's the inspiration for like G.K. Chesterton. Ends up writing a thief who becomes an investigator. He is the inspiration for the Javert Valjean duplex the duality that happens in Les Mis, because that's kind of
And Lupin as well.
And Lupin, yes, gentleman exactly. Thief. Yeah, who's the gentleman thief who kind of becomes an assistant to the detectives. So, yes, you can get me going for a full hour on that topic.
And Poe, in the end, only wrote 2 stories about one detective.
He wrote, I think there's 3.
Rue Morgue.
So Rue Morgue and
well, not Rue Morgue. Rue
Morgue. Murders on the Rue Morgue is the first time you ever see Dupin. And also Poe's detective was a French detective, right? And then you've also got Wilkie Collins writing murder mysteries, and even Button by Dickens. Like there's a whole bunch that come before Anna Catherine Green, but she's the first one to do an American serialized detective, whereas everybody else before that is French or British or
And they Australian. Talk about Sherlock inspiring the use of like following how you detect.
Doing deduction, but he was not actually. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was inspired by Anna Catherine Green. So she published 9 years before he published his first Sherlock. I'm blanking. Sign of 4? Is that the first one? No, Scarlet. No. The Scarlet. Yes. Anyway.
Reich.
See, this is what happens when I switch. This is why I've only got 4. I've got 4 different.
Studying Scarlet.
Yes, Studying Scarlet. There we go. I have 4 series going now, guys, and so I'm going to stick to that. I'm just going to work on those 4 and just see what happens. Because
I convinced her to do a 5th one.
No, because when I switch genres, right? So now I'm all in the 90s, and I can tell you about all of that, and then I start missing all my things that I can just whip out about Anna Catherine Green. But I'm about to go back to book 4 in the Spokane series, so I'll be turning back to. Then I got to get back into my 1901 phase, and so yeah. But yeah, it's all fascinating. If you want to know more about Anna Catherine Green and any of that topic, definitely subscribe to my channel and look at all my videos that I have under her as a topic, because I go into some depth with that. And then on my website too, I have like the timeline of who came before her and inspired her, and then who she inspired afterwards. So it's fascinating, the history of mystery. It's amazing. So other questions?
Tori asks.
Okay.
Who was your favorite character to write, and why was it Sable?
Why was it Sable? I love Sable because Sable is snarky and says what I'm really thinking. That's Sable. I love her. So of course they're all very literary. They all read a lot of literature because all of my characters do. It's one of the things is I always have quirky characters and they always are making literary references the entire time, usually to the mystery genre. But Sable can go a little bit outside of that. She's into Gothic literature, and so, but she hates Jane Austen. And so she makes more references to, she's reading The Prestige, and which is of course a modern novel, but it's about that time period. The main character, Goose, my narrator, is a retired Victorian literature professor. And I made her that so that way I could make a ton of references throughout and have them argue. Exactly. Yeah. And so she knows Sable from college, and then,
but Sable's an agriculture.
Yes. She's an agriculture professor. But you can find out all of that in there. But yeah, she's very fun. I made her the bellwether of the goth movement as a professor. Originally I had her as the bellwether as a kid, but that was before I had to switch it out. I had her in college doing that. But then I realized that I wanted to set it in the 90s, so I had to push all the dates back. So like I know the exact birthday of every single character. I know how old they actually are at this point in their life. So I know who they're married to or divorced or widowed or whatever. Like I know all of that. So I spend way too much time in my character building, but
as one does,
because that's half the fun. So
Tori also asks, was it easier or harder to write a cozy murder mystery than a regular murder mystery?
So I like cozy because it limits me in what I can talk about and what I can kill, what I can do. So like this series in particular, my plan is not to kill any human beings. That's my hope. That's my goal. Because I always think it's so silly how like Miss Marple lives in this little teeny tiny town in the middle of England where people are constantly being murdered and no one gets upset about it.
The common denominator is Miss Marple.
Is Miss Marple? Yes. Wonder of wonders. She is often traveling to other places that her nephew has told her about and things like that, and getting dragged into mysterious cases while on vacation, as one does as a literary detective. But we probably won't have a lot of that with these guys. It's going to be strictly in Paca Springs, mostly because Penny will never leave Paca Springs because of her anxiety. Yes, yeah. Which that was another thing. Like I couldn't say that she has anxiety. I had to just say she was very anxious because in the 90s we didn't have a term for that the way that we do today, and it wasn't recognized as an actual mental health
especially
issue,
for some women of that age.
Especially women of that age, would not recognize it as a, it's just, suck it up, buttercup. That's the answer you get. So, that
was a close one.
Buck it up. Yes, it could have been another one. Anyway, so we're almost out of time. So, anything else you wanted to ask me? Did I answer that question? Yeah, cozy versus
congratulations.
So, yes.
We do have to remind everybody that you can pre-order right now.
Yes.
At games-afoot.com.
Link down below.
games-afoot.square.site.
Yes, which the link is below. It's in both of our link trees.
But please, you can go pre-order right now.
Yes.
And you will be getting a ebook and audiobook before the print, and then the print will come.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we have some big plans for how we're going to wrap them and everything. And speaking of pre-orders, you can also, tonight is the last night for you to pre-order Andrew's book and get the ebook and audiobook.
Tonight.
It comes out
midnight. Is when the ebook and audiobook come out. So if you get your orders in now, I can send you the ebooks and audiobooks before I push it over to KU exclusive on the ebook.
Yes.
And then the copies will be shipped out before release date. So you'll hope those are actually in the mail as of today. So I'll have them to me and then I'll get them to you and go from there.
So make sure you pre-order our books, hit subscribe, hit like. Thank you guys so much for joining us live tonight as we wrap things up. And we're so excited about these two new books. Next week, we have another guest joining us, Sarah Stephen, who is an author of mysteries that have like a time duology to them. It's like a time crosser series, but it's also mysteries, and some of it is Victorian, some of it's not. So it's a lot of fun talking to her. She's also a co-host on a podcast that I absolutely love called Clued in Mystery. So really excited to talk to her. And you can hit notification on that right now because that's already live down below. Right now, so you can hit notification for next week. Yeah. All right. think that's all, folks, for tonight. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Is that trademarked? Sorry.
You didn't stutter. It's okay.
So yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight and asking all your wonderful questions. And yeah, excited to get these books out there.
Yes. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for coming later, and thank you for watching in post.
Yes. And for watching later. Exactly.
And for watching later.
Yes. So thank you. All right. We're done. All right. Have a good night, everybody.